Good morning. I was looking out in the garden today and I wanted to show you something. Way down here, the tomato literally wrapped around its own stem and is growing out on both sides all the way to the top. And with the rain and then the heat, some of the buds damped off. That's okay. Tomato plants try to help themselves too. But we got one there. We got quite a few in here. One growing. 3 there. Oh, 2 little beauties there. I don't know how big they're going to be yet, but they're kind of lightening up already. There's one that started a little earlier. And they're all different according to how much nutrients they're getting at the time. And all this rain we've had in the last 4 days, we've lost quite a few buds, but that helps the tomatoes that are already started. It pruned itself. And we got more coming out. But as you can see, the plant is not buzzing with bees. Nope. Got some little tomato buds there. Next to this bigger one. So it's doing okay. And this is a hydrangea. It didn't bloom this year because all the greenery was chopped right down to the roots. So it recovered. And of course there are some bugs eating it this year because of the heat. But if the sun stays out like it is right now, by 2 o'clock, the tops of this plant will be all hanging over. And a couple of days before it started raining really hard, the sun actually got hot enough to bleach part of this plant out, even though it's been in the sun all year, the past couple of years. That's how intense the sun got between these 2 buildings. And then I let a Rose of Sharon grow. And there's a grouping of 2, and they'll grow up and cover this corner with the wires and everything. And we prune it so that all the bottom leaves and branches are taken off because they're not necessary. So we're controlling how this plant is going to grow. So be careful, don't strip the bark off the tree when you're doing it because you'll damage it and it won't be as healthy. So take all the buds off if you can't use nippers, but just doing it for the 3rd one here. Take all those leaves off, and then as it gets a little taller, we'll take a couple more inches of leaves off until it gets up to about 3 feet. There won't be any leaves, and it will send out new little buds to make side shoots. Get rid of them as soon as possible because then they're branches, and that way your area looks tidier. So right now it's in the training stage, and eventually it'll help to cover this corner, protect the house a little bit. It's a sound barrier, and the plant growing underneath it right here will get protection from this plant growing above it, believe it or not. And it's an understory plant, Rose of Sharon, so it's far enough away from the house, even though it's only about 2 feet. planted about 2 feet away from the corner. That's plenty for this plant. And if I wanted to, say, if I want to cut it back, take the smallest one out, cut it to the ground, and let the other two grow. But you got to be diligent, because that little one you cut to the ground is going to send out new shoots and become a shrub instead of a small tree. So depending on how you prune it, that's what you get. You got to start thinking about UV and how it's going to affect our lives in the next few years. So I'm going to use the plants that way. The soil, if I had my way, I would put gravel in here. Remove all the weeds and dirt, and at least put leaf mulch in here for now. Anything light colored, lighter the better. I took an old log and put it in front of the tomato box to help shade it, because one day I came out here when the tomato box was still over on the side of the house, so you get a ladder in here, and it felt almost as hot as a pot on the stove. So I watered it real well, and it's doing great. And I had to fertilize it again. After we have a really heavy rain, you got to protect that soil with a cover, or you're going to have to reintroduce nutrients because it's going to flush out. So zinnias are growing, and these will attract bees, help bring them to our plants. So flowers are not only there for being pretty, but they attract pollinators. When you have a lot of work to do, it's good when you have 2 or 3 people working together, sometimes even 6 or 10. Life is a lot easier doing the old homestead way, because 3 generations lived in one house. Now, we frown upon that and force people to live by themselves and try to make it off of whatever way they can, or welfare, or selling drugs. A lot of people who wouldn't otherwise sell drugs do it because that's how they gain their independence. It's also possible to gain your independence by being a close-knit group of people with like minds. And it doesn't have to be one person makes the rules and everybody else has to follow it. You get a sense of knowing, just like good families do. My uncle was that way. His daughter and her husband got a new apartment, and it was in a cheap rent area. And after the first night, she was on the phone and said, "Dad," she didn't even have to say, "Come get me." He went and got her. But in the same instance, she was grateful, helped out. He helped her find a place out in the country where it was a little further, but it was safe, cheaper, but a little more on gas. And if you have people living together in a family, you can get by on 1 or 2 cars for a bunch of people instead of a car for each person driving around everywhere they need to go. So we've been programmed to think family is evil. Family is untrusting, uncaring, and a number of things. Even the TV shows, they always show family as being something to be frowned upon. And the way I look at it is, when you have a family, each contributes. One may make more money, one helps with kids or garden, another one's good with fixing cars. That doesn't mean sit in the air conditioning somebody's paying for and play video games. It means going out and checking the corn and making sure the birds aren't eating it or the raccoons aren't taking it all away. Not sitting there going, "When's dinner?" Everybody had a purpose because there was always something to do. and everybody would tell you how much they appreciated what you did. Now we're frustrated, angry, lonely, living in four walls or by ourselves, trying to make it the best way we can. And a lot of us chase after people who don't even care if we exist until we go to the hospital. I used to take care of people who were sick and elderly, and all of a sudden the phone would ring and they'd say, "What happened? Did they die?" "No, they got a cold." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure." I even had one person come after they recovered after the second flu season. "You're force feeding them. What are you doing?" I said, "Come by anytime. Check up on them. Say hello. That'd be nice." We've become a society where the money in our pockets and in our parents' and grandparents' pockets means more than the human being itself. And then the next step is what? And then when your turn comes, the same thing happens to you? Well, I don't think we should live that way. I think, especially in the way things are going, and the rich people already have their place to go. A lot of the poor, who are minions for the rich, keep on plugging away and forcing the good people to do things they wouldn't rather do, or live in jobs they hate, buying products they think they have to buy and keep up with the Joneses, only to put more money in the pockets of the people who got a knife in your back. So all I can tell you is, think about it. I'd love to have somebody help me with a garden like this and teach them my skills. Younger person, same age, older, I don't care. All it is you need is the will to want to. I don't care if they're in a wheelchair. I don't care if they're on crutches. You're still valued. You can still sit outside and protect the garden, watch the pets, can food. Don't think anybody's useless because they're not making $100,000 a year. That's idiocy. And in what's coming, the dollar isn't going to be worth anything. And if they carry out the bail-in instead of a bail-out like they're planning, very slowly, it's going to become all too apparent. That's why the smart ones bought land now and trying to buy whatever supplies. So if it happens, they can keep their land. And if you've got a group of people working together, they always go after the singles first, or the people who seem to be living alone. So, what you need to do is think about your choices, learn what the real picture really is, not how you're living your life right now. Think about, why is it suddenly getting so hot and cold? I have personally hand-mailed videos showing exactly what's happening to the earth. And the answer I get back, it's geoengineering, it's the Chinese, it's our government. Do you really think the government, as evil as you might think it is really trying to destroy the planet with them on it? I don't think so. Yeah, some of them are planning on leaving and going to Mars. Yeah, we have technology that some of us don't know about. But there are people that also care to have that technology too. All I can say is, the only way to fight back is to not do everything they want. Like Shark Tank. People had really good businesses and they're looking for money. Oh, well, we'll send the labor to China and have it made. Slaves will do it. They'll never see the light of day for any petty crime so they can have more labor. We buy those products because we want to buy cheap, because we don't want to give up that idea of cheap. Good quality, but cheap pay. And we got to start doing things like learning to make clothes again. There's hundreds of people out there learning to spin, make fiber, buy clothes at a thrift shop. Take clothes that somebody else had and refit them for your kids like we used to do when our grandparents were younger. And live within our means. Nobody needs a $400 pocketbook. If you do, you're on the wrong trail. Especially if you're not a millionaire. Granted, if you have money, you won the lottery, everybody says you should be able to buy whatever you want. I agree. But I also agree that every time you buy that expensive stuff, the price is going up. And right now, because of supplies and labor, but we'll blame it on the poor slobs that don't want to go to work because they're not getting hired. There's signs out there. But the kind of work they want you to do is kind of beyond there. So the signs are out there. But I don't think they're paying as much as they say they do in some cases. Some cases they are. But all I know is every time you keep going back and working for somebody else and making money and you're just buying expensive goods and toys, you're doing it to yourself. You gotta quit buying the expensive toys and start saving a little money. Get together with a few people, save some, find some like people who want to grow food. Be willing to eat what you grow. Don't cry because you can't have a Dunkin' Donuts coffee every morning. And then complain about the way the world is. If you like your coffee and you like the way the world is, until it changes and beyond repair, then you'll make your decision. Don't wait. Don't wait for somebody else to make that decision for you. Here we got some dill starting to flower. And most of the raspberries bloomed. But because the bees do not stay around here, this raspberry only filled out partly. And they were very tasty. They were very good. And I have some in a big bucket, and I'm going to sell to somebody or give to the right people who come by. Nice raspberry bushes in a bucket. This plant is very healthy, so it's probably rooted into the ground. So think about it. Cause and effect. The cause of our problems right now is not just because of somebody else. We're all shooting ourselves in the foot. The other problem is the sun. We're at a grand solar minimum. It dropped to the very bottom of quietness. I watched the videos for over 2 years. Watched your tilt in videos that people put out. I watched the forest fires right after we have a solar flare and the magma swells in the ground, the volcanoes go off, and the fires just go shooting all over the place. Yet there's firefighters that believe that the fires underground are from a fire started by lightning, which shot up out of the ground because of the intense electromagnetic forces going off underneath the ground. The lightning shooting up in the air. Their mind won't accept that, so they think, oh, lightning started a forest fire. And it could be like it is today, just barely cloudy, but a giant lightning bolt from no storm, no rain, caused the fire. Get out, start looking around, start asking questions. Start looking at the videos that I put out for you. Ask questions. Talk to you later.